Field Vision Sports presents The Matchup with Sasha Bushka.
Kyler Murray kind of looks like a little kid running from his parents when he scrambles in the pocket.
Scott Bushka.
I had to tell my daughter that today wasn't really about her first day of school. It was really about me and the launch of our company.
And Cody Alexander.
Randomly, no. As somebody who's been around football my entire life, I literally can say that I've never smelled smelling salts, nor have I ever seen anybody actually have smelling salts. I'm sure that they were used at some point.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Welcome into the Matchup by Field Vision Sports. Excited to have you here, as always, recording on Wednesday, heading into Wild Card Weekend. I'm your host, Sasha Bushka, joined by the head of football ops, Cody Alexander, and the Jerry Rice of Field Vision Sports, Scott Bushka. Fellas, how we feeling today?
Explain that one to me.
Well, so
I mean, I will take being compared to Jerry Rice.
My original hypothesis
ageless wonder
was like I was thinking of like all-time playoff performers, receivers, that sort of thing.
Hell yeah!
And I was thinking about Travis Kelce. Like Jerry Rice and Travis Kelce are the top two playoff pass catchers of all time, basically in any metric. But I figured I'd go with the older gentleman since you're old as shit.
Kelsey would have really. My beautiful wife Kelsey would have loved being compared to Taylor Swift. I don't know who Jerry Rice's wife is, but
I'm sure she's great.
Hey,
so.
I'll take it. I'm gonna try not to cuss, but I definitely need an ice bath because I'm fired up for the playoffs. I'm fired up for my kids being back in school, which means I get to work and talk about football all day. And I'm fired up for the playoff challenge, which I'm sure we're gonna talk about. But we got some fun stuff going on for the NFL playoffs at Field Vision. I'm on fire today.
It's gonna be good stuff. We got a big show planned. We're gonna go over a little bit about the NFL coaching carousel, look at the power rankings and some of the Super Bowl odds from before the season and now the current ones. We'll break down some of the playoff matchups and give our picks at the end, as always. Real quick, I'll go into what Scott alluded to there off the top. Field Vision Playoff Challenge. Get into the app now. We're going to give you the chance to win a cash prize. And all you have to do is pick who you think is going to win all the games in the playoffs. Do a little tiebreaker of total points in the Super Bowl. It's a free contest, nothing to enter. So you got to get into the app and make your picks and see if you can outsmart the Field Vision model.
And Cody. And Ball Knower 5000, the Coach A, Cody Alexander.
So not true.
By the way, $5,000 to the winner. So it's a pretty good deal. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Cody, so next year when you're a year older and a season wiser, will you be Ball Knower 6,000?
Probably just 5,001. Let's just go with one. I don't want.
You got 5,000 years of ball knowledge. He just adds one every year.
I'm just gonna add one.
Does that make Bo Ball Knower 2,500?
Yeah, right. Bo knows ball. That's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. What do you say we dive in, fellas? We'll mention the contest again later in the show. But the coaching carousel's in full swing. We had Black Monday. It wasn't a very eventful Black Monday. Antonio Pierce actually got fired on Tuesday, and Gerard Mayo got fired on Sunday. So I think there was only one job that went by the wayside on Monday. That was Doug Peterson of the Jaguars, and the other three had happened during the season. But the Bears are looking for a coach. Matt Eberflus is out. The Patriots are looking for a coach with Gerard Mayo out. The Jets got rid of Sulla a long time ago. They're looking for a coach. The Jaguars are looking for a coach. The Saints got rid of Dennis Allen a long time ago. They're looking for a coach. And the Raiders, as we mentioned, got rid of Antonio Pierce on Tuesday after they let him address the media on Monday and say he thought his job was safe. So the Raiders kind of botched it as usual. Cody, in your mind, if you're one of these candidates out there looking for a job, what job intrigues you out of those six?
Yeah, to me the problem is with almost all of these jobs is that they didn't necessarily fire the GM. So to me, it's one of those where you're going to have to go into a situation. And I would definitely want to be going into a situation where I'm going to be able to align with the GM. I think that, the problem that you have in some of these, like with the Jets, is how tumultuous is that going to be? That's chaotic. I don't think the Jaguars know exactly what they want to do. I think maybe the Patriots situation, because you don't have to go and draft a quarterback, might be one that it would be probably the most interesting to me, because New Orleans is going to be a complete rebuild. Chicago has Caleb Williams, but you've got to figure out what to do with him and how to get him going. But again, are you going to be aligned with kind of the ownership and everything there? There's a reason why these teams are consistently at the bottom, and they're still at the bottom.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned like quarterbacks. Obviously, Jacksonville has Trevor Lawrence, which the
Right.
Jags paid him like he's a guy. They
Right.
gave him $50 million a year, or $55 million a year in the offseason. The Bears and the Patriots have their young quarterbacks that there's no indication of like moving off of. You've got Caleb Williams and Drake May. The other three are pretty much dumpster fires at the quarterback position. The Saints, Derek Carr was hurt at the end of the year. He's obviously not the long-term answer anyways. The Raiders literally have no one to play quarterback. They went with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell all season. And the Jets obviously did the Aaron Rodgers experiment, and maybe he comes back for one more year, probably not. So if you're looking at quarterbacks, the three logical jobs are the Bears, Patriots, and Jaguars that at least have something there.
Well, and I would probably, thinking on it just a little bit longer, the Bears situation is probably the best in terms of roster. You have really an elite secondary. You're going to have to fix the front. You have a Sweat who can play. You need some interior defensive linemen. You have good linemen. To me, the fall off, if you go and you look, because I've been doing some stuff with our data, if you go and you look at the Bears EPA, they're really good. They fire Eberflus, and it's like they just fell off of a cliff. Now, the offense wasn't very good for most of the year, which kind of compounds the problems on there. But if you really go and you look at it, you need to rebuild the lines. If you can rebuild the lines on both sides of the ball, you're probably a playoff team. So to me, that probably is a better situation. The Patriots, for probably 5 years running right now, have gotten the most cover one out of any team in the NFL. And that's because they have zero talent at receiver. So that's kind of always been the black eye of Belichick, is that he couldn't figure out receiver, but Saban could. So I think if I could go back, I'd just pick Bears is probably the best situation.
Yeah. The only problem with the Bears is where they reside, which is the NFC North. Because I don't I don't see any of those three teams going away anytime soon.
No.
Because they've figured out in two of the places, the quarterback and coach situation, and Minnesota has kind of proven that they've got a good enough coaching system that, they can, it's a little bit plug and play with the quarterback. But that's the only thing that scares me about the Bears. I also am in the camp of I think there's probably three rookies that were better than Caleb Williams. Maybe four. I would argue Penix might have shown me a little bit more. And so I think the book is still out on Caleb Williams a little bit, but
no,
Yeah,
and I like your
definitely out. The question is whether the book might be being written more towards the negative side than the positive side at this point.
Yeah, and I think even to your point, Scott, just of if you want to go probably to a place where you maybe could get a total rebuild, the Jaguars might be it. But they're just so to me, they've got kind of that Panthers vibe of the owner just meddles a lot, or at least the son does. It's kind of same thing with the Jets. The Jets roster is actually not bad, but then you got to figure out the quarterback spot. So there's major issues. Again, it goes back to alignment, and there's major issues on all of these teams, and it comes down to ownership. And there's a reason why they're consistently at the bottom. And it's just get football people to come in and do football things. I think the best example of this is Detroit. They hired a football coach. They paired him with a GM that's not going to do anything crazy and aligns correctly with the head coach. And then the ownership backed off. I think, to me, that's the Broncos are another one. New ownership. Let's pay. Let's get everything right. Let's get the head coach that knows how to win. Let's get the quarterback, and then let's back off, and we'll just write the checks.
Yeah. But to me, there is one outlier when you keep saying like these are teams that are consistently bad. Not the Patriots, right? The Patriots have been consistently good, and I actually appreciate
Not in a
it.
while though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they went to
Brady.
they went to the playoffs with the bad. I mean, I would argue that Belichick's problem was that he wasn't a good GM anymore. Right. Like their talent dried up. They had a bunch of bad drafts in a row, and he was actually dragging poor rosters to 10-7, 10-6 seasons and into the playoffs. But so they have been consistently good. And I actually like what Robert Kraft said, which is basically like, this is my fault, and I put Gerard Mayo in a bad position. And for the record, like, I think it was the right decision for them to move on. I think the mistake they made was last year in rushing to they basically made the decision to make him the coach 5 years ago. Right.
Yeah. I've heard the story. There was a story of they went on a trip to Israel. They had a kind of like a bonding time, and then Kraft has always. That's the one thing that Kraft has always shown is that he's not a meddler, but he probably has a little too big of a heart for an owner and sometimes latches on to things. I think like that, his relationship with Tom Brady, as we know, it's well documented, kind of rubbed Belichick the wrong way. He probably held on to Belichick a couple years after he probably needed to. Probably should have just said, look, if we're going to lose Tom, we probably need to just completely reset it. And he didn't. So this is just kind of par with the course for him, though he has shown he will learn, I think, from some of this stuff. So it'll just be interesting to see how they go in that direction.
The relationship with Tom thing was interesting because obviously he did the right thing keeping Brady as long as he did. And Brady obviously still had a lot in the tank even after he left New England. So that worked out. But the way it played out, they left him with nothing, with no succession plan when Brady left because basically because of that relationship, Brady didn't want a succession plan in place. And then if they would have just kept Brady at the time he went to the Bucs and then put a succession plan in place for those 2 years, it might have worked out better for Belichick when he left. But that whole thing was a mess. But I want to shift off the Patriots just for a second. Before the show, I gave basically a list of all of the interview requests that have happened from these teams, and the list of candidates is a mile long. But I want to go to the hottest of hot coordinators, and that's obviously Ben Johnson in Detroit. It's pretty much presumed he's going to at least get a job this offseason, but the question is whether he takes one. But I think he's at the point where you go become a head coach. So Scott, if you're Ben Johnson and you have, let's say, your pick of these 6 jobs, which one are you taking?
Patriots.
Yeah,
because you got quarterback, you got ownership that's proven, at least in the past, that they can win and stay out of your business. So yeah, to me, the answer is the Patriots. Yeah, there's a whole other question as to whether or not, and I know this is not what you asked, but it was what I was thinking about, so maybe I'll talk about it anyways. But there's a whole other question as to what makes a good head coach and whether or not Ben Johnson is for sure going to be one, because I think we get enamored with these scheme lords, like the guy, and Ben Johnson is clearly like an amazing offensive mind, right? But he works for the ultimate culture setter, right? And the ultimate leader of men, which is Dan Campbell. And I think as a head coach, you have to be both. And it's not like you can get a scheme lord that can't lead a group of 53 men and doesn't have the respect. I would argue that like Mike McDaniel is dealing with that right now, right? Like pretty good offensive coordinator, can't get guys to come to meetings on time. And I'm not sure his locker room respects him. And so to me, like look, this is really hard to find like a good coach, but to me, it's a really fine line that you have to walk between like, do I want someone who's going to come in and build culture who's a ball knower and a leader of men, right? Think Mike Vrabel, think Dan Campbell. Or do I want someone who's a scheme lord, but I think they can actually come in and garner the respect of the locker room?
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the biggest question with Ben Johnson. There's not that many people that can do that. Like Andy Reid over the years has shown the ability to do that. Everyone thinks that Sean McVay is an amazing head coach because of his offensive play calling, but it's really because of like the culture he's set in that locker room. So anyways, like
Yeah.
that's the thing I'm thinking about, like when you think about the candidates in this coaching cycle.
And you could make the argument that Ben Johnson has worked for the perfect head coach to learn those skills,
Totally.
but you can't always mimic it. Like you can't always replicate
No.
just what you see every day.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll just say in my experience, because I had to make a choice at one point in my career. Do I want to be a head coach? Do I want to be a coordinator? And I came to the realization I don't want to be a head coach, because the moment you become a head coach, you almost quit coaching. Right. So even at the
Coaching the
NFL, and
coaches.
I do get the point of like, there are guys that can compartmentalize and they can, like McVay's a great example of that. He can be the head coach, but he can also be an elite offensive coordinator. But I do think it takes a bigger toll on guys like that, because go and look at just the mental state, like McVay a couple years ago, where people really thought he might just pull a John Madden and just retire. Right. And like you're talking about Vrabel, who's not really a scheme guy. He's more of a leader of men. Dan Campbell, more of a leader of men. I think John Harbaugh is a great example of a special teams coordinator, became a leader, not necessarily a scheme guy. I think these scheme guys, and I had a conversation a couple years ago with a really high profile offense coordinator at the high school level about he was thinking about taking a job for a head coaching job. And he's like, what do you think? And one of the things I said to him was, the moment you take that job, calling the offense is going to take a back seat, because you're going to have to talk to parents, right? Your mental load. Can you do that? Are you going to find joy in that? Are you going to find joy in being more of a leader? You can still call the offense, but you're going to take a little bit of a step back in that regard. And not everybody can do it. Now, he may decide here in a couple of years, I want to do it. This is what I want to do. But I think that that's a really good, and I think him not taking a job last year is really telling on him of he's actually thinking about this a lot more, because most guys,
Totally.
they'll tell you there's only 32 of those jobs. When you get a chance to get one, you just take it and you don't ask questions and you hope that it works. But I think he has the wherewithal to be like, look, I've got a good situation here. I want to run it back in Detroit. So whoever is giving him advice is giving him good advice.
Yeah. Last question on the coaching carousel, and then we'll kind of move on to the ball on the field, as they say. And I'll go to Cody on this one. There's one other job that we haven't talked about yet. The Bears requested an interview from Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is only under contract for another 6 days until January 14th. Do the Cowboys get this worked out with McCarthy, or is he end up in one of these other 6 openings?
No, I think Jerry Jones lets somebody else take care of it. I'm being dead serious. I think that is the MO. That's what frustrates everybody here in Dallas, is that Jerry Jones is very fine just being mediocre, being good enough to then win a bunch of games, sell a bunch of jerseys. And I think that has become the problem, is that everybody knew this year was going to be a struggle regardless of what happened, because he wasn't going to make a decision on Mike McCarthy. We heard it from the players. We've heard it from the pundits. We've heard it from the insiders within that are leaking everything out to the pundits, right? Is that the Bears are basically calling Jerry's bluff, saying, look, I actually think Mike McCarthy in that division with a guy like Caleb Williams, I think that offense fit. Not that Caleb Williams, when I say it's a simple offense, I'm not trying to say that he can't think or process. What I'm saying is it's more accuracy based, quick throw based, get out of the hands. It's the offense that Aaron Rodgers built. I think that to me, that fits the mold of what Caleb Williams wants and can be. And so to me, I think they're like, look, he's a proven winner. He wins 10 games or more every year. And then we're just going to call your bluff. And so I think he could very, very easily end up in Chicago if that's something that he wants to do. But I don't think Jerry does anything in the next week.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
No, it's bizarre.
he's really gonna. I don't disagree, but he's really gonna.
It's bizarre.
He's really gonna screw McCarthy if he doesn't do anything and then lets him go and denies a bunch of interview requests.
But to me,
well,
I
that's
think
neither here
that's
nor
been the
there.
plan all along. Is wow, we'll just let it run its course. It's what he has done really within the last decade. This has been a trend of his. He let the whole Dak situation get really bad because he didn't sign him when he could have. If you think about it now, if he would have signed Dak when he was supposed to, we're talking 30 million instead of 60 million, right? And so you end up pushing the cart down. You let somebody else kick the can down a little bit longer. He's done the same thing with all of these. And now you have a bloated roster with 3 stars that don't even play together other than the 2 on the offensive side.
But can we talk about Jerry's performance in Landman, which was epic?
Fantastic.
But
Very
like somebody
good.
said,
Maybe
somebody
he should
said
be an
Jerry,
actor.
but that was a real deal. Like to me, that's what somebody was saying. Is like Jerry has made that speech probably a million times, and
You
so
can't consider it acting unless you're playing someone other than yourself.
yes.
And as far as I know, he was playing himself in that
Yeah.
show. I have
Wow.
not watched the show yet, but I did see the clip of Jerry.
No, it's really good. He did an excellent job. But like people were saying here, he has said that many a times before, probably to some people.
Well, it's literally the first time I've liked Jerry Jones ever. So, anyways,
Let's what do you say we add Felix Johnson to the stage? What's up, Felix? Did I catch you chewing?
Bring in the excitement.
I got Felix at the wrong time. He didn't know it was coming.
I thought I was gonna catch one more bite, just one more, and Sasha caught me.
You never know what's going to happen backstage.
No.
Felix, how you feeling about the playoffs?
I'm feeling
You
fine.
pumped for it?
I'll just ignore all the bad coaching takes, but I'll leave those alone.
Are you gonna win the playoff challenge, Felix? The field playoff challenge.
I mean, it doesn't matter what happens in the NFC as long as the Chiefs win. I don't really care. So.
A, quit being a homer. B, Felix, I'm willing to put some money on my bracket beating yours. How much you want to do?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do $200 let's double it up since last time.
$200. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Writing it on his board.
Me versus you. Me versus
Felix,
you. $200.
Is your username going to be Chiefs Knower 5000?
No, it's probably gonna be Ball Knower 6000.
Okay.
I think I gotta try and one up code it. No, I'm joking. I don't. I think I'll just probably be real boring and go with my just my name.
If we had I don't know if we have this, but if we had a ball knower test, I'd probably take Cody over Felix.
Oh, for
not
sure.
Not a picker test, but a ball knower test.
I cannot. Yeah, I'm terrible at gambling.
It's like the Wonderlick of the media. We're gonna invent that.
I think I could cover the spread against Cody. I think I give him a little bit of a run for his money. He might be a 10-point spread, and then I lose by 9.
Great, good teams win. Great teams cover.
Yeah, you'd be about like the Denver Broncos are going to be this weekend.
Lose by 8. Yeah,
we'll be better next year.
Felix took the liberty, not the liberty. He was asked to do it, of ranking the 14 playoff teams heading into Wild Card Weekend. Let me just give a quick rundown of what he came up with. He's got the AFC 7th best team is the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 14, Denver number 13, Houston number 12, Washington Commanders number 11, the Chargers number 10, Tampa Bay Buccaneers number 9, Los Angeles Rams number 8, Green Bay Packers number 7, Vikings 6, Ravens 5, Lions 4, Philadelphia Eagles 3, the Bills 2, and the Chiefs 1. Sorry I hesitated at the beginning a little bit there. I just realized he had the Steelers and Broncos seeds mixed up a little bit. Felix, do you want to defend your rankings before we even get a chance to pick them apart?
No, because I think they're perfect. What is there to defend? They shouldn't be attacked.
Scott, what do you have qualms with there?
Oh, geez. I was sorry. I was texting Jesse about the admin portal. Welcome to Field Vision. My qualms, I don't have a lot of qualms. I would like to have the Lions higher than the Eagles.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure the Bills deserve to be number 2. I think the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Lions, and the Ravens are my top 4. But also the Bills just haven't played in a month, so I'm not sure what to do with them.
Yeah, I think particularly about Detroit, it's they haven't got a break yet, and they are the 1 seed. Like they're out of the 2 1 seeds, they're the one that has played the entire time. Like they're going to get their bye week and everything. But they didn't rest against San Francisco when they could have, and then obviously they had to play Week 18 against the Vikings and ended up dominating that one because Sam Darnold and the Vikings couldn't figure out how to score in the red zone for whatever reason. And then and I just kind of believe in the Eagles a little bit more. I think the Nick Sirianni, you talk about it all the time, where like whatever it is, like Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio may run their sides of the ball, but they figure it out, and they've got just as much, if not more, talent than Detroit this year and probably San Francisco last year. Buffalo, I think that we've kind of forget that Josh Allen going into the playoffs, other than Patrick Mahomes, who's the quarterback you trust the most? I think it's probably Josh Allen, and that means a lot, especially in the playoffs. And with Baltimore, it's hard for me to really believe in them heading into the playoffs because Lamar, as great as he is, he's kind of a different player when he heads into the playoffs, and he's had a couple of opportunities over the last couple of years to rectify that and hasn't yet.
Let me I'll tell you what stood out to me is the bottom 3 teams on your list are all AFC teams, and the top 2 are both AFC as well. So basically what you're saying is like the AFC's top heavy, but it's not as deep as the NFC. Cody, would you agree with that assessment, or do you see it differently?
No, I would. I think probably the Commanders, to me, I would say are probably slightly ahead of the Steelers, but I think the Broncos would beat them. The Texans, I think would also beat them. I think the Chargers would just bully them. The team to me that I think is a little high is the Packers, and I think the NFC is more competitive, has a more competitive middle class, but to me, it's really Detroit and the Eagles. I think the Vikings are there and they've won a lot, but they can't beat Detroit. Detroit in both games offensively has basically waxed them. Scored over 30 points. I think the Lions defense is getting better. The Eagles defense is obviously really good and has peaked at the right time. You just have questions on the quarterback. That's why I would flip them. But to me, it's really a 4-team race. You could argue probably 5-team race if you want to add the Ravens. I think everybody else is just kind of scratching. Now, if there's a dark horse, I think it comes from the NFC, and I think it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Rams. So if you're looking for a dark horse, I think the AFC, I think the top teams win. I think they just kind of move on. I think Denver could give Buffalo some fits. But I just don't think we're going to see a lot of upsets until we get into the meat of that, and that's going to be kind of the next week. So to me, I think we could see some upsets in the NFC. It's a lot more balanced than the AFC, but the top teams are the top teams.
Well, and I think the interesting part about the Commanders is that Jaden Daniels has been phenomenal all year long, and he's ranked in the top 4 or 5 when it comes to threat. And when you think about it like that, he is a top 5 quarterback because every 3 weeks or so they have a moment where they need to pull out a game, and guess who's coming out with a big play? It's Jaden Daniels. And you saw it at the beginning of the season when they had that game against Cincinnati. I think it was on Monday night, and he had like that 91% completion percentage. And then like the last Monday night game, like very recently against Atlanta in overtime. So I even in an individual game standpoint, I think that Washington has to be focused on a little bit because of what Jaden's capable of in moments like that.
Well, I think defense is a problem in the NFC, especially in kind of that middle class, is that it's an erratic defense, right? Like what Buccaneers team is going to show up? Is it going to be the one that can score 30 points and hold an opponent to 17, or is it going to be one that's a shootout and they lose in a shootout? Same thing with the Rams. The Rams defense isn't great. Everybody's in love with Verse. There's been some good secondary play, but they have been below NFL average defensively EPA wise for the entire season. So to me, those two teams, and even with the Commanders, that's a major issue with there. That's the one thing the AFC has over the NFC is defense.
Yeah,
Almost every single one of these is good.
The one team that can play defense in the NFC is the Eagles, right? But they have, I don't want to say an erratic quarterback, but a quarterback you don't necessarily trust if you get him outside the game script and the game plan they want to play. And by the way, we haven't seen Jalen Hurts in like 3 weeks. So, I mean, one thing I heard about the Eagles, which this is pretty wild, is they go into the playoffs with all 22 of their preseason starters starting and healthy, which is pretty wild, almost unheard of. The last team to do that was the 2022 Eagles. So they're really healthy. The question is, like, can Hurts, bring that passing game to life and get AJ Brown going if you stop the run? I just don't know. Outside of Minnesota, like, who in the NFC can do that?
And we talked about how Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, how good their defense has been, but like Detroit, they just don't have that. I think they're a little exhausted just because they've been playing the entire year long. And Philadelphia, they have probably and it depends on how you look at it, but like the tougher of the 2 seeds draw, because Buffalo gets Denver, and we talked about how that matchup might be interesting, but also Philadelphia has to get Green Bay. And we talk like Jordan Love might be elite, but he might also throw you 4 interceptions or whatever the case may be. So, and like they have that's one of the few teams that Green Bay has lost to all season long. So is there some sort of revenge that is built up in there? And Green Bay being the youngest team heading into the playoffs again, only 7 seed in the NFL history to win a playoff game. So they're young, but they are also experienced because of what they did last year.
The caveat for the Lions is moving Branch down to the slot in week 16. If you go and look at it, they've kind of skyrocketed by moving him down. The big news there is the fact that Amick Robertson has really been able to hold his own on the outside opposite Terrion Arnold. So to me, without Carlton Davis, he's been able to step in and it's changed that. So they're kind of, to me, that defense is a wild card heading into this playoffs.
Yeah. Amick Robertson has made 3 all havoc teams in the last like 4 weeks. So
and when did they make the move? They made the move, and then look, he's been able to produce. He's a man coverage corner. That's what they want to do. So to me, I think there's a lot of things on the back end. I love watching. I really want to know what's happening in that last quarter of the NFL and where teams are trending. If you're trending up, that's good, right? Because there's a couple of teams trending up. You have Detroit trending up. Eagles are trending up. You have Denver's kind of always stayed pretty much where they are. Kansas City defensively looks a little wonky, but they have that offense. So to me, I think when you look at it that way, those 2 teams in particular in the NFC side, watch out on defense.
Yeah, with Detroit in particular, and I know we're talking a lot about scheme, and Sasha probably wants to move us on and actually talk about the games, but I feel like I should do a victory lap because on this podcast last week, I told you guys, like, I don't know why Detroit's going to win that game, but it's going to be a culture win. Like, they're at home, and it's going to be a culture win for the 1 seed division rival. It's the same reason the Chiefs win all these games, and like the Lions have entered into that realm of like, they're like, and I see Felix shaking his head, but I'm right? Everyone in the media who thinks they're ball knowers picked the Vikings to win that game. Right?
No, I'm just saying.
It didn't freaking matter. It didn't matter because the Lions went in, Alex Anzalone comes back, and they just out-physicaled them, right? And they bowed up at the goal line. And so that's why, like, you give the Lions 2 weeks off. They're starting to get some guys healthy. Like, I don't know. I'm still sticking with my pick before the season started, which is Chiefs Lions in the Super Bowl.
The only qualm I have with what you're saying is that it's in the same realm of what Kansas City's doing, just because they have some hardware to go along with it. And I mean, it's we've only seen it with the Patriots when they had Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. That's the only reason why I have a hard time saying that. It's more like Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they've done by never being under 500 for 15 years straight or whatever the case may be. Or it's more along the lines of John Harbaugh never losing preseason game. That's what it's more along the lines of to me. And even those guys have more hardware attached to what they've done.
The difference is Detroit's been on a steady progression upwards
For sure.
for 4 years. And they haven't won anything yet, but you're eligible too, right?
Yeah,
Like,
comparing to them to the Chiefs is not fair. I'm not saying that they're the Chiefs in terms of the standard of winning that they've set, but they have Detroit over the last 3 years has earned the right to get the benefit of the doubt over the Sam Darnold led Vikings, and they proved that on Sunday night.
a couple of bigger picture points. You have to look no further than the Vegas spreads to tell you that like the NFC is more balanced than the AFC. You've got two over touchdown. Like the Ravens are favored by 10 and the Bills by 8.5 in the wild card round. The biggest spread in the NFC is 4.5 for the Eagles. And then you've got the Bucks favored by 3 and the Rams as 1 point home dogs. So there is more balance there. One thing I find interesting about everything you guys are saying is that like the defenses reside in the AFC. What's interesting about that is so do the quarterbacks. And so, but it's a roster construction thing. These NFC teams have good offenses, but it's not built around the quarterback. It's built around offensive weapons. The AFC teams have basically taken the tact of like, our quarterback will figure it out on offense. So we're going to allocate resources to defense and be good on that side of the ball. And then come playoff times, Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen will give us enough offense to win games. Really quick, hot off the presses. That was the presses shaking there. It's really, if you look at Vegas, it's we've gone back and forth. It was a 6-team race. There were 7 teams capable. Cody said earlier 4 teams. Vegas thinks there's 5 teams that can win the Super Bowl. 3 in the AFC, 2 in the NFC. The Detroit Lions are plus 275. The Chiefs are plus 350. The Ravens are plus 600. The Bills are plus 600. And the Eagles are plus 700. It goes all the way down to plus 1,600 for the Vikings. So it's really it's a 5-team race. Now, those odds change every week. So if somebody gets hot or really looks really good one week, that could change things. But going in, Vegas is telling you one of those 5 teams is going to win the Super Bowl. One thing I found interesting, I looked at the opening odds before the season started of the top 10 Super Bowl odds. 4 of the top 10 did not make the playoffs. You've got the Niners, who were the Super Bowl favorite, the Cowboys, the Bengals, and the Dolphins all missed the playoffs. They were in the top 10. So I don't know what that really tells you. It just tells you like you never know what's going to happen in an NFL season. And I think the same, like in a condensed format, is you never know what's going to happen in an NFL playoff. One team could get hot and it could change things real fast.
Yeah.
I even argue like the importance of the quarterback, because like even in the Dallas situation, like Dak gets hurt game 5 of the season or whatever it was, and they get towards the end of that season, and even in that Monday night game that they flubbed against Cincinnati, they had a chance to make the playoffs. And if Dak's in, is that how much are their chances changed? And then the same thing with Tua in Miami, and we have our feelings about how that might be, but sometimes we talk about X's and O's as much as we do on this podcast and otherwise, but sometimes it is about the Jimmies and Joes, and particularly at that position, it's about who's there.
Yeah. Sasha, I would bet so 4 of the 10 preseason favorites did not make the playoffs. I would bet you of the remaining 6, the 5 that still have the highest odds to win the Super Bowl are in those.
Chiefs, Ravens, Lions, Bills, Eagles. Yeah, they are. So that's a good point. Although the Eagles were all the way down at plus 1,700 at 8th, so they weren't very high on the list. I'll close with this question on the playoff odds, power rankings thing, and then we'll move into this week's matchups a little bit. I'll start with Scott because he's bullish on a Chiefs-Lions Super Bowl. It would be too easy of a question to give you those 5 teams or the field. So I'll just give you the 2 favorites. Lions or Chiefs win the Super Bowl, or somebody else wins the Super Bowl.
I'll take the Lions or Chiefs over the field.
Cody?
I'll take the field.
Felix?
I'll take the Lions or the Chiefs.
I got Lions or Chiefs as well. I thought about adding like a third team to the non-field side, but I think then that gets too easy. I think it's pretty close. Like either one of those 2 teams wins. I think it's probably about 50-50 that either the Lions or the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. So that's good odds if you're a Lions or a Chiefs fan, but you still got really good chances if you're with the Ravens, Bills, or Eagles.
Well, what if it's like just to flip the question real quick, like the top 3 teams in the AFC, kind of along the lines of our conversation last week. If it's Buffalo, Kansas City, and Baltimore versus the field, how would you feel?
To go to the Super Bowl?
To win.
Oh, to win? I mean, I think it'd be really surprising if one of those 3 teams didn't make the field, make the Super Bowl. So then it's just a question of who you think's going to win it.
Yeah, but so we talked about there being 5 teams that can win it. So your question is really, do you take the Chiefs, Lions, or are you taking the Bills, Eagles, Ravens? Right,
Yeah.
like of those 5 teams, you want the 2 or the 3.
And the small percentage of like
right,
the Vikings getting hot, or the Packers getting hot, or the Rams, or something like that.
And the Chiefs, the distinct advantage the Chiefs Lions have is they only have to win 2 games, they don't have to win 3, and they get to play at home.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good assessment. That's really good logic, Scott. I like to have some logic on the pod. I appreciate that. Speaking of lack of logic, Felix, any last words for everyone before I take you off stage?
I knew that was coming. Just like from a mile away, that there was just and Sky, I have pity for you sometimes when the podcast starts and he does his stupid little introduction because you just see it coming. I did a radio show with this guy for almost 3 years. You see it coming from a mile away, and he does it anyway.
Well, that's what they say about humor, Felix. It's always funnier when people can see it coming.
Oh, Thanks, Sasha.
All right. Felix thinks he's a sit-down comedian, so I like to give him coaching on how to make people laugh. On the other side of the break, we'll get into the wild card matchups. You're listening to the Matchup by Field Vision Sports. Stay with us. Welcome back into the Matchup by Field Vision Sports. Excited to be with you. Joined back by Cody and Scott. Left Felix backstage for this segment. Just a quick reminder, Playoff Challenge is live. Get in the app and pick your playoff teams for a chance to win $5,000. Speaking of picking playoff games, we've got the wild card round coming up. On the AFC side, you've got Chargers at Texans, Steelers at Ravens, Broncos at Bills. Then on the NFC side, you've got Packers at Eagles, Commanders at Bucks, and Vikings at Rams. I'm going to break this up into 2 categories of games. You've got like the big spread games, or the games involving teams that we just said could win the Super Bowl. That's the Eagles, Bills, and Ravens. And then the small spread games. So I'll start with the favorites. So Ravens are 10-point favorites against the Steelers. Bills are 8.5-point favorites against the Broncos. And the Eagles are 4.5 favorites against the Packers. Out of those 3 games, could you see any of the underdogs winning those games? I'll start with Scott.
Yeah, I mean the smallest spread is the Eagles Packers, and people have been on the Packers as a quasi elite team all year. I think the Eagles are a bad matchup for them, and I think the Eagles are going to take care of business. I would go to the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, and I mean, there's one reason, which is that we already saw Pittsburgh beat Baltimore this year, and they have historically proven that they can muddy up a game against Lamar in that offense. So I'm not suggesting that I think Pittsburgh is going to beat them, but I think Pittsburgh has them in it to make this a 19-18 game, to make this like a turnover. We're going to run the ball, slow down the clock. I just don't. I mean, the Steelers really need, this is going to sound obvious, the Steelers really need George Pickens to catch the ball.
Yep.
Like they don't have an offense if he doesn't, right? So, but I can I can see them making that tight, mudding it up, and Lamar starting to get a little nervous and do Lamar playoff things.
No, I think that's a good one. Of the 5 contenders, the one matchup that I think if I am one of these and I am scared to death of is the Broncos and the Bills. I think that that is a matchup that I think defensively for the Broncos that they can limit some of the things that the Bills want to do on offense. And I think that Sean Payton has proven with the 3-headed monster that they have at running back, they're all healthy now. That they are fine running the ball. Even if they're only going to get 3 yards, they're going to keep doing it. The Bills have kind of had that, kind of Jekyll and Hyde on defense. Are they able to stop the run or are they not? Now, I think the problem that the Broncos offensively will run into is being able to pass the ball downfield. I think the Bills have 2 really good corners. And you're just going to have to get Sutton doing what Sutton does. But if there's one team that I think I like yours, Scott, with the Steelers, just because of familiarity, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, or play a team 3 times and win. I think the Broncos can do some things defensively to really mitigate that Bills offense.
I'll say this about the Broncos Bills too, is like people made a big deal about the Chiefs losing to the Broncos and the Bengals not getting in the playoffs. The reality is the Chiefs were probably never going to get to a point in the playoffs of playing the Bengals anyways. They were probably going to lose their first game. If anything, the Chiefs didn't do the Bills any favor giving Bo Nix a boatload of confidence heading into his first playoff game.
Yeah, exactly.
They
He went
definitely
26 for
gave-
29 in his last game.
Yeah, they definitely gave the Broncos an irrational level of confidence going into the playoffs, which could be good or bad. But
Yeah.
I mean, my issue with I think the Broncos are dangerous. My issue is just like they pound bad teams, and we'll call the Chiefs third string a bad team, right? And then they lose to good teams. They lost to the Bengals the week before. They lost to the Chargers 2 weeks prior. And so my level of confidence in Josh Allen not going nuts against that defense is not very high.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll see when we get to our picks later, but I think both offenses can perform pretty well in that game. But is it safe to assume that you guys would both, if you're picking on money line, no spread, you all like the Ravens, Bills, and Eagles to win those games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
look at some games that are a little bit more on the fringes. You got the Chargers and Texans. The Chargers are 2.5-point road favorites. Commanders at Bucks. The Bucks are 3-point favorites, and the Vikings at Rams. The Vikings are 1-point road favorites as well. So 2 out of those 3 games, the road team is favored. Which game do you like the road team the best between the Chargers, Commanders, and Vikings, Cody?
Oh, I like the Chargers. I think to me, the Chargers are the best. The Houston Texans to me are essentially just waiting to get beat. It's a good defense, but we don't know what that offense has just struggled all year. We know that the Chargers secondary has played relatively well. I think they're going to have, they're going to shorten that. They're going to put a lot of pressure on Stroud to make plays because they're going to shorten the game. They're going to make him feel like he's got to throw the ball. So to me, I think that's the matchup where I see the road team probably has the best chance of winning.
Scott, do you agree?
I definitely agree. If you flip it around and say which of the underdogs has the best chance to win, we already saw Cody's pick, but I like the Rams to get the Vikings, which it's a predictable sad story for Sam Darnold and that Vikings team, but I just think like the Rams got a week of rest. You've got Sean McVay, you got Matt Stafford. Like the Rams have already beat the Vikings at home this year. And so if I were to pick an underdog, which I'm looking at the 5 games, the one underdog I like the most is the LA Rams.
Yeah, and they're 1-point dogs, so it's small. I will tell you, the Rams showed you by their actions in Week 18 that they did not care about playing the Vikings. Like, they weren't scared of the Vikings because and it could have backfired because if the Vikings win that game, then they're playing the Lions the first round. But they could have still tried to win Week 18 and gotten the 3 seed, and they decided to rest everybody, let the Bucks win, and take the 4 seed and play the Vikings. So the Rams, I think, are going into this game with a lot of confidence. I still think I think the Vikings offense played really bad last week, and that gives them a lot to correct going into this week, and they've played really good most of the year. So I think they fix a lot of that. I like Kevin O'Connell to get his former mentor and the Vikings to win to that game. But we'll get into those picks later. I will tell you. Go ahead.
I think you're right in the Rams not being scared of the Vikings, and a lot of it centers around having a quarterback that you trust to deal with pressure and make the right decisions, right? And I think Sean McVay and Matt Stafford feels like he has that.
I think the Bucks Commanders game is interesting.
Yeah.
That I don't know who I like. I think it's basically a pick 'em, but I'm surprised that the Bucks are favored by 3 points over the Commanders. I know the Bucks have played well lately, but over the course of the season, the Commanders came out with a better record, and I know the Bucks are at home, but I see this game as playing out as a potential shootout, like neither defense being able to stop the other. And I know Jaden Daniels is a rookie, but he's been really good in shootouts this year, and he's won a lot of games late. The Bengals game comes to mind, the Falcons game comes to mind, where both teams are going back and forth, and he manages to be the one that gets the last score. Baker Mayfield has had an all-time season, and most people will tell you he's got cojones, but I could see Jaden Daniels pulling that out just as easily as Baker Mayfield if it gets into a shootout and it comes down to a last possession.
I actually think that game's going to be like 31-17, but I couldn't tell you who's going to win it. But I think one team's just going to flame out. It's going to be really close.
By 14.
It's going to be really close at halftime. It's going to be like 17-14, and then it's whoever is just going to end up 31-17 to end the game, and you're going to be like, oh wow, that team just got boat raced in the second half. But don't ask me who's going to win. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I almost went with the Bucks. If it was 2.5, I would have gone with the Bucks as my best bet. And the only reason is who's the only team in the NFC to make the playoffs the last 5 years? It's the Buccaneers. They are actually, if you take the fact that they play in the NFC South and people don't generally respect the NFC South, they're actually the most tenured, most experienced playoff roster probably in the NFC. And so you're talking about a team that's used to being in the playoffs, a team that was in the playoffs last year and dealt with the Eagles at home handily, versus a rookie quarterback, Cliff Kingsbury, and a Commanders defense, which, let's be honest, is not that good, right? So I side with the experienced team that's at home.
I like it.
It's fair. That's fair. Anything else that you guys want to point out about any of these matchups before we get into picks?
No.
What do we think is the best game?
I think that Eagles-Packers game is probably going to be the best game just because they're both evenly matched. You know, we don't know about the quarterbacks. What are they going to do? I think to me, that's probably going to be of all of them, the best game. You could argue me that the Vikings-Rams game would be the best game.
I look at the two teams, the two road dogs, because it's where the division winner is not favored to win. And I'd go with the Vikings-Rams game just because, I don't think any game involving the Texans is going to be the best game right now, just the way they're playing, the way their offenses look. I'm not saying the Texans don't have a chance to win because the Chargers' offense hasn't exactly been an explosion fest either. But in terms of entertainment factor and what game I think was going to be really close and really fun to watch, I'd go Vikings-Rams.
I mean, there's a reason they put it on Monday night.
Yeah, I think it's Vikings-Rams too. That's why they put it on Monday night. Do you think the NFL really has that much respect for ESPN that they want to give them the best game? Usually they give NBC all the good stuff. No. Realistically, I think networks have protected picks. So I think Fox got to pick, and they picked the Eagles-Packers on Sunday afternoon. So it's a little bit of juggling. Although I did hear that Monday night game has to be a 4-5 game. because you have to know where that team's going before, like
For the next
basically, like
round.
you can't have one of the higher. You have to have the higher seeds play first.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
they basically had the
Anyways,
choice between Chargers, Texans, and Vikings, Rams.
Exactly. I will say, if the Broncos can keep it close, I think that Bills Broncos, like if you end up in a shootout, end up in a shootout in the fourth quarter with the Bills on the ropes, like that game could get super fun.
Yeah, like 31-31. Who's going to get the ball last to get a field goal?
And maybe the Broncos are playing loose and the Bills are puckering a little bit because
Yeah.
they can't lose in the wild card round.
Exactly.
You never know.
And they just, like, normally you wouldn't trust a 7 seed like that, but they've got a coach who's won a Super Bowl. So I don't know. I'm rooting for that one to get interesting.
Same.
It could be fun. Scott, give us some picks. 3 picks.
3 picks. I know we're running out of time. I'm gonna make my game pick the Chargers cover 2.5. I mentioned I thought about going with the Bucs, but I just don't get the hook with the 3 points there. So look, I just think Cody said it earlier. The Texans are waiting for someone to put themselves out of their misery. So I'm going to take the Chargers to cover 2.5. I just don't see the Texans being able to score. And I see Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman like getting a touchdown lead, just sitting on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna take that with my second pick, which is I'm gonna take the Chargers Texans under. It's 42.5. It actually might be the only game I've ever seen in our app where it has both of the teams favored below their Vegas point total. So give me the Chargers to cover 2.5. Give me under 42.5. And I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't thought about my prop a lot in this conversation, but give me Devontae Smith over 60.5 yards against the Packers.
I think it's an AJ Brown game, but Devontae could easily get over 60.5, and AJ Brown still have a good game.
Yeah, I think they're going to do everything they can to keep the ball out of AJ's hands.
Cody, what do you got?
Yeah, I've got for my prop, I think Kyron Williams is going to go under. The Vikings, it's a pretty safe bet for the rushing to go under there. Scott, you picked the Chargers in Houston under?
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in your picks.
Yeah, Cody's got it there.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm going to double up. I'm going to double up. So, you know, for a fact, it's going to be in our best bets, but I agree too. I think the safest over under pick in this is going to be an under.
I'll allow it. I'll allow you guys both.
I'm sorry, Cody.
No,
I promise you I didn't see it.
No, it's fine. But I like it. I'm not going to change. I like it too. So, and then the game, I actually like the Rams to cover the +1 against Vikings. So basically, I'm going to take the Rams beating the Vikings. I think this is a team ascending versus a team that's descending. They're coming off a huge loss. I think that they're going to be traveling to LA. They're going to be a little bit tight. They're going to be pressing a little bit, which that's not something you want to do. The one thing that I think gives the Vikings a trouble is if you have 2 really good receivers. That's something that the Rams have, and they move them all the time. So I think it's going to be a Rams win.
I will go Derrick Henry over 98.5 rushing yards. I think like Lamar's playoff struggles are well documented. The Ravens are just going to try to lean on the Steelers and like dominate the game. And it might be one of those where he's not like super high in rushing yards throughout the game, and then he busts off a big one in the fourth quarter when they're icing it. That happens a lot with Derrick Henry. So I'll go Derrick Henry over. I will go Bills Broncos over 47. I think like the Broncos offense is playing with a lot of confidence. You know the Bills are going to be able to score. Josh Allen is going to put on his cape. If the Broncos are scoring points, he's going to score with them. And the Bills defense has given up. The last time we saw him in like a meaningful game was the Lions game, and they gave up over 40. They gave up over 40 to the Rams the week before that. So I'll go Bills Broncos over 47. And I'll go opposite Cody on this one. I like the Vikings to bounce back. They've been a 14-3 team all season. They're good on both sides of the ball. So I'll go Vikings -1.
Ooh, little competition there.
Square off.
Love it.
Can I interest you in teasing the Bills down to -2.5? It's just sitting there for you. Pair it with something else. Maybe taking the Steelers up to 14.5.
Take the Steelers up to 30 for all I care. Scott, on our way out the door here, I'll give our picks real quick, and then I'll let you wax poetic about the playoff pick'em challenge. But Scott's got the Chargers -2.5, Chargers Texans under 42.5, Devontae Smith over 60.5, Kyron Williams under for Cody, Chargers Texans under as well for Cody, Rams +1. I've got Derrick Henry over 98.5, Bills Broncos over 47, and Vikings -1. Scott, tell the people a little bit more about the playoff challenge.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to wax poetic about other than, look, we're coming up on the end of our first season as a company. We're thrilled with how it's gone. We've given a bunch of best bets. The model's given a bunch of picks. We are pumped about all the people that have supported us. So we wanted to do something fun for the playoffs. So everyone loves March Madness. We're doing a little bracket style Field Vision playoff challenge. Doesn't cost you anything. Just get into the app, download the latest version. You're going to tap on the trophy up top and make your picks. Make your picks for every game of the playoffs. Choose a total score for the championship and see if you can win. There's going to be a $5,000 cash prize, and we're going to keep following it as we go through the playoffs. So just something a little fun for the Field Vision users. And at the end of it, someone's going to be pretty pumped that they get a $5,000 check. So yeah, and I'm guessing I can beat Ball Knower 5000, also known as Cody.
Probably.
I'll probably win the snap challenge. That's going to do it for the matchup by Field Vision Sports. Follow us on X at Field Vision MI, on Instagram Field Vision Sports. Download the app, get the latest version, and fill out your playoff brackets after you hear this. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
I'm definitely getting in the ice bath this afternoon in preparation for the playoffs.